Hello, and welcome to the Old Farm Bus Podcast. This is the back of the bus session.
Hello and welcome to the Old Farm Bus Back of the Bus Sessions podcast. Today I'm absolutely buzzing. We've got a special episode. This is going to be hopefully the one that we keep on going on doing. It's role models. We've got a night here on the farm with young lads. We have a fire circle. We do practical skills. We've got cooking. We've got a lot of different skills coming to this night. And I'm really excited about all the men that we have coming in and showing their skills. So I'm going to introduce you to Big J.
Hello.
How we doing, mate?
Good.
We've got Matt over here.
How's it going?
My boy Ollie next to me, and I'm Mikey. So, lads, I brought us together to just talk about what we're up to. So, Jay, your involvement in the night, I got you along because I know what you do for a living.
Yeah.
You work with young people. You've been doing this work for a long time. Like 20 odd years ago you were doing this?
Yeah, 21 years ago, yeah.
21
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
So what were you doing then?
I was doing the mentoring stuff. And as I said to you on the previous podcast, so I was working with young offenders in the city. So top 10 young offenders or re-offending in the city. So it was part of an active sports type program. So we mentored, or I was a mentor for young offenders at the time. So basically doing one-to-one work, group work, sports work, kind of stuff that we're doing here, to be fair, on the Tuesday night. So yeah, that's what I was doing, sort of 42, so it was 2019, 20, so yeah, 22 years ago.
And we'll get into sort of why working with young people is where your heart lies. And same with you, Matt. Have you worked with young people before?
Never. No, this is my first time. So it's very exciting, and I actually have gotten a lot out of it in the past, how long we've done it, 8 weeks now, something like that. So
because the reason I got you on board, we did a night here, we're not doing it at the minute, but Muck Out Mornings. And I've really connected with you. I thought you had a lovely way about you. But to be honest, it was 95% women a lot of the time.
yeah,
So when we were chatting, it was an anomaly for me. But then you were just really passionate about what you were into and your passions and your interests.
yeah.
And I thought this could really rub off into the nights that we're trying to bring here, because my whole thing on every night we do is just passion.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help passion fuel people, because I believe that's the key. That is the in for people. If you can find a hook, if you can find a sense of purpose in their life, that's your road's set, isn't it then?
Yeah.
And I felt that in you. I knew you had that thing, so I wanted you to impart that. But what is that thing?
So I make furniture. That's my job. I'm a self-employed. I guess I call myself a carpenter, but I'm not really. I make furniture mostly. So I've been doing that for the past 7-8 years now. Yeah, I love it. I've always made things, but it's when you came up with the idea of coming and doing this night with everyone, I thought it just sounded like a really, really positive thing for young lads to be doing. And even if it just, because it's a particular thing building as well, it's slow, really. There's not results immediately. So
Unless you're doing bodge jobs.
yeah, which is largely what I do as well, so that's absolutely fine. But I thought if you could plant the seed of this is what's possible when we're doing building and anything we do with the role models night, I thought it would be an important thing to be a part of. So that's why I thought it sounded like a really good idea, and I wanted to be a part of it. So
Beauty. And Ollie, it's actually a nice tale on how you came to the Old Farm Bus, because you've been here for quite a while now and been a part of the journey.
A little while, yeah.
The whole building of it. But I love it, like you lads know, like how kind and humble and beautiful this guy is. One day I woke up and I got a message, but this guy had made a film to put on YouTube and send me. Because you know when people want to have involvement or whatever, they'll send you a bit of a write-up or whatever it is. But he thought, no, I'm going to go a step further. I'm going to make a film and just try and sort of meet you without having to meet you kind of thing. And I just thought that was really lovely.
Film makes it sound extravagant. It was just a little video.
It was
Hey,
like, it was really,
But it was enough, wasn't it?
I was really curious, honestly. It was like, it's gone to the trouble of putting it on YouTube, then sending it over. And originally you just wanted to come and drum, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Did we have the projects going at this point?
No. So this was before even Off the Breaks. I think I sent you a message. I was after a place to play the drums. That's all I really wanted to be doing. But I think part of that as well was for my own practice, but also with the idea of teaching as well. And I think when I came up to meet you and Chrissy, we kind of were talking about it all, and you showed me around, and then you were kind of telling me about your plans going forwards, and that's kind of where Off the Breaks came in and started taking off.
That was fun, wasn't it?
So I mean, it's amazing how I kind of I met you, and then that just kind of evolved into Off the Breaks, and then whatever else after that.
Off the Breaks was the sessions we were running before all these 5 nights a week. And what did we have, about 40 kids showing up most sessions?
That's a good number.
It was, around 40 or so. But it was just me, Chrissy, Ollie and his brother Joe. And we were just constantly making up stuff on the job. We learnt a lot in doing that.
Massive, yeah.
But that really was a moment where I saw the potential of what you can do and what you can achieve. And the kids gravitate around you. They really enjoy your presence. I
think some, like, all of the kids gravitate to each of us. I think that's why it's nice to have such a mixed bag of us as facilitators, because they each will like resonate slightly. Like, some of them just want to come and play drums with me and they get on with my character. Some of them want to do like stuff with Jay, and the same with you, you know.
What's it been like? Because obviously you said in that chat you just wanted to come and play the drums, have a place to be. And I've got you working with young people. Have you enjoyed that process?
No.
I wouldn't. What sort of learning have you done in this time doing that?
I mean, just loads, really. Like, when I think back to even the first Off the Break session that I came to, I was a bit like Matt in that I hadn't really worked with young people, certainly not in like almost like a group setting. And so it was a little bit nerve-wracking. I was a bit like, oh, wow, like how do you communicate with them? How do you hang out? But like, I don't know, I think you just relax into it, and, you know, week by week, it all just kind of just flows better, you know. But yeah, I think, I don't know, it's just been a gradual process, I guess. Like, I think because I've done a few different workshops. Like, I've done the drumming, I've done some stuff with you, I've helped Joe out with some acting as well. I've kind of been able to work with the kids on a few different levels, which has been really nice.
And so, a lot of the kids that we get on the farm are ones that particularly struggle in mainstream education. That's predominantly most of the nights that we're having, but they've got lovely personalities, really excitable,
kids,
wonderful kids, aren't they, when you meet them? I would like to just do, again, a round table of, like, what's your thoughts on why we're getting those in, and what is your thoughts on the system, how we can be as open and honest? We've spoke a lot about that on the podcast before, education. But yeah, what is your thoughts on it, and why we're getting the kids we're getting down here? Because it is a bit alternative, isn't it? On buses, on a farm. Yeah. What's your thoughts, Jay?
It's different, isn't it? And not a one size doesn't fit all. And that's the beauty of here, is that there are different activities for different mindsets. And I said it before, you know, to treat all kids the same is to treat them really inequitably, because everybody's got a different background, everybody's got a different home life, everybody's got a different diet sometimes, you know, and mainstream education doesn't suit everybody. The challenge of being in a very constrained environment for young people, and having those set rigidity rules and boundaries sometimes doesn't work for them. Doesn't mean that they're bad or unruly. It just means that for whatever reason they cannot cope in that type of situation. You then put them out in society, and what you end up with is, you know, a street corner where there's no rules, nobody's given them any rules or boundaries, and then you end up with significant issues. You end up with problems on the street, antisocial behaviour. Having something that has rules and boundaries that are fluid to a degree, but they largely make up with us and have to follow the rules that they made themselves, as well as having different things. You've got the building, you've got the drumming, you've just got the space outside, you've got the graffiti, you've got the fire that Dan does, and the cooking. They have those rules within that thing, and they have an option to either do that or that or that or that, or move between the two if their attention is. And I think that, and the personalities that we have around the table, and those that aren't here as well, massive personalities and calm personalities that aren't going to detention, that are not going to wield the iron rod. They're going to explain calmly and allow them to then move through that. I think that's why you get what you get here.
That's why it's working, isn't
I think it
I
is,
like
yeah.
that sense of ownership as well on the space.
Yeah.
We're conducting and creating this together, and it feels like a process.
Yeah, and I did some work in residential homes for a few years, and so different young people have they have what's the word? It's gone, but they can't. They have it'll come to me in a minute. They have to have different personalities that they were warm to. So the attachment. So some of them have got real attachment issues. So they can't attach to one particular person. And so they have to have a number of people around them with different personalities that they can get the best out of.
If they get too close to somebody, it feels like something wrong will happen.
Yes.
So they
can move, but they've got the opportunity to move between us all.
Yeah.
And get the best out of it. When it starts to feel too. I mean, there's one particular young man, I won't name him, of course, who comes, and some nights he's really standoffish, some nights he's next to you, and you're watching bounce around each individual personality, basically sponging every nice bit that he can get, and then he'll move on, and that works for him.
Do you know why I think it's working as well? Is because we haven't all been on courses and overdone it. Like we're semi-naive to it, but we are people, and we've been on our journeys, and we're trying to just learn on the spot. Whereas I've noticed in schools and certain places where they try and bring in what's this pedagogy told me, or what's this said, and they can overdo it and lose that sense of what does my heart say in this situation. And I don't know. I think there's a nuance to this. I think you have to have safety, and you have to have procedures, and you have to have things in place. But what I'm noticing from everyone around is they really tune into that side of their human nature, and they're looking at this person, seeing them in stress or seeing them off the walls excited, and we're easily able to sort of go to our side of, right, I'm just going to be me for this, and authenticity, and see how it works.
But we don't have a system that we have to be constrained to either.
Yeah.
So you talk about school, and you talk about, courses and stuff like that. A teacher's got a class of 30 kids.
Yeah.
They have to impart knowledge. They have to meet a key stage.
Yeah.
They've got, you might have one or two young people there who are really struggling, and that's okay, but they don't necessarily have the bounce effect of having more than one person in the classroom. They've got 28 other young people that they've got to teach something to, and it becomes the mass rather than the individual. When you come to something like this, you've got more than one adult, a safe adult in the arena, as it were, who isn't there to necessarily impart anything specific, and they have that time to maneuver you and spend that time with you over a period of an hour, 2 hours, 12 weeks. And that's what they warm to, because it's not constrained. Teachers have a tough job, don't they? But they've got to deliver something.
They're going with here's my passion, and then suddenly everything else.
Yeah.
And it is just a grades chasing game, teaching as well. That's all it is. And now, if you're in an academy,
competing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But what I've found on the farm when we do the role models is, because we do our men's circle at the start, because we all share our daily lives, what we're having going on with us, I think they get that confidence to be like, even though I don't share fully, what they might be feeling because they're young boys, they still know that because we've shared, we're almost more vulnerable in a way, that they've seen us be vulnerable, so they can almost say, well, I didn't have a very good day, and that's all they can say. But because we've shared that intimate sort of like, oh, I've had a tough day at work, I've lost a family member, something like that, they can see us being strong men, where maybe they don't see that at school with teachers who are saying you need to do your work or you're going to get a detention. So it's a different setup.
It's like a domino effect, isn't it, when that happens?
Gives them some permission, doesn't it, as well?
Keeping on just education for a minute, and then you said a good word then, the masculinity. I'd like to get onto like what positive and healthy masculinity looks like, and then what is toxic masculinity, and we'll all have a version on that. But this man here, you had a really interesting education. Did you follow? Was it the Steiner school model that you were engaged in?
Yeah.
Okay. So have you guys heard of the Steiner school or anything like that?
Heard of the Stein beer.
Well, it's a German model, isn't it, for schooling and education?
Yeah.
Could you give us a bit of a talk about that? Because I'm a dad, and I've got to look at a school for Ella to go to eventually, and it's something that I've been intrigued by. But listening to you, it wasn't. It was nuanced. It wasn't the best, and I've glorified it in a way.
Sure. Yeah. Like, I mean, I probably would do a big injustice trying to describe it, because I went through the school. I don't teach. I haven't studied it as such. But my experience at school was great. I had a really good time, and I think a lot of that is to do with just how deep that education system goes, Rudolf Steiner kind of developed a system that like really looks at a child from their infant stage through to puberty, through to adolescence, and then adult, and it's really looking at how as an infant they're always imitating, they're copying everything that they see in that outside world, and then they move through into the imagination stage, and then they start moving into like their rational thinking and becoming an adult. This has just come off.
All right, so it'll still be going. It's one. Cool. It's just
okay,
dodgy wires.
Dodgy wires.
Yeah.
So, like that being said, the classes follow that natural pattern through a child's kind of life cycle, if you will. And it's just, I think it's a very grounded system. There's a lot to do with like the outdoors. Like when I think back to school, I just remember going on things like walks, being encouraged to play outside. It was a very small school. The one that I went to was about like 100, 130 pupils altogether. Wow. Yeah. So there's like classes of 10, which touching on like how I think you were saying like there's 28 people in the class and one teacher, and there's like a lot of attention to like divide between so many people. But I think in these smaller classes there was kind of you just kind of got the support you needed.
Was that in this country?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think he's actually Austrian. He was alive in like the 1930s. But like the schools are branched out now. They're in Europe. They're in the UK. I think they're in America.
It's a shame about because was it Michael Wood you went to?
Michael House School.
Michael House. Okay. Is it working that? Sorry if not.
It's good. It just needs a little wiggle at times.
Little wiggle.
There you go. Yeah. We're
awesome.
Back.
I'm good at editing. Call me Steven Spielberg. Yeah. Why did that close down? Do you know? Because for me, what you've just described then is quite similar to what we're doing here. In that terms of we get to really hone in with students, we get to really help develop and learn, but it's tangible numbers and things like that. And just knowing that it is going off, there is different alternative routes with education and things being, because all I knew was the mainstream way of doing it. And I think systems are there and some people will just suit them and it makes sense. Yeah. But for those that don't, we need to be thinking and having conversations about what else can we deploy.
You see them pop up though, don't you? And the thing is about something, that model sounds fantastic. It's the sustainability of that model, isn't it? And when you've got the wider aspect of mainstream education, you do have the pop-ups. So, you've heard of Kit McGrath. So, sometimes we would refer to Kit McGrath and do some one-to-one stuff after school, and they're becoming more and more prominent on the education circuit as an independent who can offer certain things. Most things now are academies, and there is a monetary value to achieving grades. I work with a young person who was permanently excluded, for instance, and shouldn't have been. And the reason that they were permanently excluded,
bringing the school down.
Yeah, because it was a statistic.
Yeah.
And that young person becomes a statistic in a school of 1,000 kids. You've got 999 who aren't getting fixed term exclusions every week, but you've got one that is. And then when they're going to be monitored and when things are coming in, they've got that statistics there. So it was easier to just move them to one side, but that has a knock-on effect for that young person because they become lost. What you're talking about is fantastic and rooted in the learning aspect of a child as an individual. But
And
the mainstream can't do that.
We're not just imagining this. This is something that you went through
Yeah.
and have explored. So I'm really fascinated
Sounds fantastic.
to hear
Yeah.
about
Like another large part of it is like working with your hands a lot. You'll work through different materials from like beeswax to clay, and through the ages, that they introduce different parts of that. And so it's not a case of like getting you writing from a really young age, because our hands aren't developed at such a young age, and neither is our intellect to be like studying all these words and these symbols and letters and going over and over. It's like it's kind of forcing something out of a child that isn't naturally already there.
moulding them for
Yeah.
a purpose beyond what their needs are.
Yeah, but if you get them like working with their hands and they're creating shapes and animals and things like that with these natural materials, it's I think it just applies better to the kids at that point.
But I don't know all your journey, but it is apparent in who you are. You've found a thing and a passion, but you're daring.
drums.
But you're phenomenal on the drums. Like, that is solely you. And do you attest that to the fact that you were allowed to explore and encouraged to explore, whereas schools are kind of, no, you're here to do this thing, and the mind might be going, well, I feel I've just seen something out there, and like, no, sorry, you're in art now, or well, art's kind of cool, but no, you're in maths, and then you stop exploring that thing and then put a bit of a pin on it.
Yeah, no, I see where you're coming from. I think it had, I think because from a young age I've been encouraged to just kind of, to just to be curious and to be okay to try things,
That's a great word.
And
Great word.
yeah, and when you stay with curiosity and you never lose that sense, you kind of, to a certain degree, never properly grow up. You stay in a kind of a nice, curious state. Like everything's interesting, but you don't dry up,
Because I do think school is sort of set up. Here's a question, what's the answer? And they want you to get to that answer in the fastest route. It's sort of A to B. And that sort of, here's a question, what could the answer be? Like if I said, what colour's Tuesday? Everybody here is going to have a completely different colour in their head. It's actually blue.
Definitely grey.
It's yellow.
We've all got a perspective, but we're all encouraged that that's yours to play with, and that's a piece of you, and nobody can be wrong in that.
Yeah.
But for the school to exist and to work and to function, you have to have losers, because if everyone came for a job and everyone's got an A and just went, look at that, you've got nothing to measure it against. So for an A to exist, you need a B, you need a C, you need a D, you need an E. And then that means you've got people built into society as, well, I'm dumb at this, I can't do that, I'm dumb at that. Rather than a CV of, here's what I can do, I'm brilliant at this, this and that. And I just don't think that they focus on that as the forefront in education, which I find quite a shame. They're here for them. And I don't want to just hammer them, because my partner's a teacher. I know incredible teachers. They've gone in there with the right state of mind, but I see them getting battered and bruised left, right and centre because of something way beyond their reach. And I think it then affects the teachers, which floods down to the kids. Everyone loses their spark, which is why are we going to school? Do you know what I mean? That's a good question, a really good thing to ask.
Education's changed massively and changes every now and again based on what's happening in society, based on what the new trend is. That does have an impact. 100 years ago, everybody left school at 15 and went down a pit, or they went to be a police officer, or into the STEM fields. It was more hands-on back then. I remember my father talking to me about his school days and what they were learning. And then society moved on, new inventions happened, so then it became more about the technology side of stuff. So that was the more of the delivery, so the less of the hands-on stuff that come in. And then you compound that with what mainstream social media depicts and what the expectation our young people have about what success looks like. Well, that's very hard to teach that, isn't it? Because you're competing, I said this before on a different podcast, you're competing against millions of other people. A very small percentage of hyper successful people that they're now trying to aspire to be. So the fall from grace, as it were, or the fall from I'm not going to achieve that, is bigger than it would be if they wanted to be a maths teacher, but they ended up being something else because the fall was less. You can't, your careers advisor, you won't have the grades, but have you tried this? Now the aspirational stuff that our kids have to look at is all the way up there, and I'm not saying they shouldn't aspire to be those people. Some of them not.
Role models.
But then the teaching staff have also got to keep this level as well, haven't they? That you need your core and your key skills to do certain things, because you might want to be the next YouTuber, but actually you've got to have this as well, and it just dilutes what our young people are sort of viewing and their sense of self. It dilutes what perhaps they want to be. I didn't really know what I wanted to be until, in my late teens, doing whatever. Whereas I think nowadays, our young people have got so much to dilute them.
I think, just to intersect that, I think the most important skill we could ever help people with is the ability to think for yourself. And that's what they lose. And we need you to answer this correctly, and have this bunch of answers to sort of regurgitate loses that ability to explore and think about all the different possibilities. Because when my friend did a book called Forget School, but he went around and just interviewed hundreds of self-employed young people from the ages of 21 to 30. And he just asked them two questions, like, what did school teach you and what didn't it? And the commonality was, outside of school, I had to learn how to network, how to have confidence. There are all these like quite wholesome attributes that aren't in the curriculum whatsoever, because you need to have X, Y, what is X and Y and Z, answer that in a box, tick, no, you do you know what I mean? But having this ability to think for yourself, right, where am I? What do I want to be? Where do I want to go next? Spin plates. I think that's what the world's become. So instead of the teacher now, because we've got some knowledge of humanity in our pockets here, instead of the teacher being that information giver, I think it needs to be a vessel to help explore with the kids and help them find the information they're seeking a little bit more. I just think it needs to start shifting its look, because it's a bit outdated.
I was going to say that it's a very outdated system, isn't it, education, and that's not a detriment, because we're still teaching things, although we have to be more fluid with technology and stuff, we are still teaching things to our kids that we 200 years ago.
They're like, I'll just get, no, you can't use that. It's like, but that is the real world now.
You'll never have a calculator in your pocket.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But an interesting point that you were talking about, how the confidence, they lose the confidence that sort of mainstream schools, because I saw a documentary about private schools, and is the education actually better? Why do private school kids do better? And they basically, there's lots of factors obviously, and people always say connections, but what they found was the biggest thing was private schools give them confidence. So when they come out of school, they think they can do anything, and they know that if they work hard, they are going to achieve a level of success that is going to be happy with. They're going to be happy with. Where, like you say, the state schools, they get that confidence almost taken away if they're not academically gifted, and that is a lot of kids, especially young boys as well. You know, they don't. A lot, like I was art kid. Like I got middle of the road everything, and art was my subject, and I just didn't care really about it. And now it's silly because I love history and I love learning, especially with podcasts. I mean, you can learn anything you want to in about an afternoon, really, can't you? Become an expert, it's fine.
Two bears, one cave.
Yeah, it's
Learn a
amazing.
lot of things.
Yeah, you do a lot about the world, but you learn a lot about different people and world. You know, you can be across the other side of the planet now and learn. You can think, oh, I could do anything because I can see people do anything on TikTok or YouTube. But what they miss, I think, in mainstream schools is they teach them, if you do these steps, then you get this grade, like we talked about earlier. But it's not like if you work really hard and fail and work hard and fail and work hard, then you may get to somewhere that you want to be.
Yeah.
But that's not taught in school. That's sort of like there's a right answer and there's a wrong answer, largely, you know. And I think that's probably where a lot of kids fall down.
It's quite subjective, isn't it? Like success as well.
For sure, yeah.
What you see success as, because those in the private schools we could see as coming out high achieving, but what are their mindsets like? You know, if their mum and dad are working all the time or very busy on here, are they getting love experienced at home? And then they're going to have very different complications from that. I saw a keynote speak and somebody said, I never judge a kid about the amount of money that's been in the home, but the amount of love that was shown in it. And when they said that, I thought, wow, that is beautiful, because I've met some of the loveliest, kindest, rich people ever, and also really broken, you know, mentally. They're just always chasing a goal. It's like the dance is here now. This is life. This is where it's at. But they can't stop this pursuit. Do you know what I mean? So success in schools is often just this thing you get at the end of it, this
very
piece of
singular,
paper.
isn't it? Yeah.
And it's a very finite amount of time as well, isn't it? That's the thing. You've not got your whole life to explore what you might want to do. You do have that because some people go into change careers, you know, in the 50s and 60s. Some people, you know, find music at a later age. But in school, you have a particular amount of time to learn a particular set of things. And there is no area in which you can, you know, move away from that or try something else unless you're doing extracurricular stuff, which in our schools is very few and far between now. You know, and then you dilute that with 20, 28, 29 other young people, and that's not for you. You're over one side, and that's huge.
Well, you got like a cocktail of hormones going on
Absolutely,
as well. You're
yeah.
trying to
You've
work
got to
out
figure out your
all
own
your
personality,
relationships
yeah.
and friendships, and
Well, you're learning yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't.
and there's
think
no
you should,
class on that.
Absolutely, and I don't think you should ever stop learning bits about yourself all the way through your life. I don't think I go through any day where I go, yeah, I've got all this sorted. I haven't.
Yeah,
Nice, wouldn't it,
Not at
though?
all.
It'd be lovely.
Yeah,
That's a really good point though, because you know, if in school all of that kind of learning is done like under pressure and it's not fun, you're not engaged, you're just being forced to get these answers down on a sheet and then okay, I've done it, then you come out of school and are you going to want to learn anymore?
Yeah.
You know, it could definitely have a knock-on effect for you to actually be like, oh yeah, no, I kind of want to do this, I want to do that. It's like, oh, just no more, thank you.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this part because I get us all on a fuller picture, and it's a firm that I'm really glad I'm working with you all.
But your point's probably more valid than the one I made, because education for our young people is something that's done to them. It's not something they choose to do. It's you have to do. And that when you have to do something that you struggle with, and you have to do something because you're being told legally you've got to do it, and your parents are going to be in trouble if you don't do it, that becomes fun. And if something isn't fun for young people in particular who have that, you know, curiosity about life, it's you've lost it. It becomes a chore, and that's when they start to push against it because they've still got that mindset of children, of course. You know.
I remember going into classrooms and was having to just copy the objectives on the board and so on, and you think, oh my God, this is such a passive experience. But then there was one teacher you go into and he says, right, everyone in, and you're all excited. And he's like, I'm going to tell you today why this is so important, this session. I'm going to really let you know to be here for the next hour, why you're going to value from this, what you're going to take out of it. And he just got us captured for the first 10 minutes. And from then we were in. We were ready to learn. And it's sometimes just meeting a wonderful teacher, isn't it? And just somebody that really, they're within the system, but they're thinking, I'm not going to let it beat me down, though. I'm going to make sure I infuse myself in this. But he did get kicked out after 2 months, and I cried my eyes out. I was gutted.
But I would
He was
imagine.
in bottom set English, and he was the one time I was like, I think I'm going to get something out of this. And then the new head came in, Mrs. Umbridge.
Not that you take umbrage with that.
For all them Harry Potter fans out there, I didn't actually say her real name. But yeah, basically a very authoritarian teacher, and because of his approach, got him kicked out. So that was kind of probably where a lot of my hatred for the system starts to stem from. I really saw it exposed in that moment.
I would imagine every teacher, every person who goes into teaching has that desire to be that teacher.
Yeah.
And again, the systemic side of that, the pressure that's put on to achieve statistically, depletes that motivation. You end up becoming a cog in a big wheel. And
I think a good amount, but I do also think there may be people that have got it is authority, it is for this, I'm going to create this, and they last longer because that's what it's looking for. It's just a view I have. But jumping from that, I've really enjoyed that chat. We're working with lads on this night for role models, and I think this is really important work. One of the guys that couldn't be here tonight, but mate ready Daniel, and Daniel, I went to one of his men's circles. He invited me down, and when he first heard men's circle, I was a bit apprehensive. I'd never heard of anything like it before. I'd had a really long day at work. I'd been to do a talk far away, just getting back, and I was so close to not going. I thought, mate, a men's circle, been invited down. I don't know what it is. It's raining. But something inside said, no, you've been struggling recently. There's something going off. Let's go and see what it's all about. I was there for 10 minutes, and I was going, oh, I didn't realise I needed this in my life. So important. It was just like really strong masculine men all around this circle, big fire, and my whole sort of vision of it just, I thought I'm just going to let it take me, see where it goes. We went round, everybody sort of said their piece, Daniel set a beautiful tone, and then I purged, I opened up, I just said everything I could say. So from that moment, I thought, okay, that's beautiful. Started working on the sessions that we're already doing here with the kids, and they just kept coming to me with struggles and problems, and as kids do. And then it just felt really symbiotic. It felt like this sort of serendipitous moment of, okay, mental health stuff here, this is healing me. Met you, like practical boxing, and then kind of I was like, this can work, there's something in this for me. And then we had these chats and thought, okay, men's work, I think we do need to separate it, because I think when I saw the lads here around the girls, they don't open up as honestly and authentically as they would when they come to you on a level. So I thought, okay, let's separate this night, bring some lads together and do this talk. But what's your opinions on that? Like this toxic masculinity in the whole, lads coming together and having conversations. Jay, you're the oldest here. it wasn't necessarily done in when you were at school, was it? Lads coming together. It's still not done in our era properly yet, but talk about it when you were at school.
No, and lads didn't talk about stuff. Men didn't talk about things that were bothering them. You bottled it up, you pushed it down. You know, I think Bill Burr does he does a sketch where he's going, push it down, keep pushing it down. You know,
that's his
mate.
But
it is, you know,
Paper Tigers.
That was what it was, wasn't it? You know, I've been to the men's circle a couple of times. You know,
it's good, isn't it?
It's brilliant, yeah. And I started talking about things I didn't even think I would want to talk about, to be fair. But you just have this forum to open up, and I think when you look at, because I spent a lot of time in my career looking at things that you know, would make your toes curl, and reading things and having worked with young people, I think there isn't a space for men, and young men in particular now, to have that space for themselves and have an opportunity to have permission, and I'm big on that word at the moment, a lad or a man to have permission to express their feelings without quite quickly being shut down by some other facet of society, you know. And I would have relished something, and we've said it around the fire, I would have loved something like that when I was going through my struggles as a teenager, to sit down and have, you know, have the fire circle and have the opportunity to share and hear that I wasn't the only one struggling, regardless of my age or experiences, you know, sitting around the fire now. We did it last night, you know, and listening to what people were struggling with on a day-to-day basis. It's very real for them. Giving them the opportunity to do that gives them an opportunity to open and learn and not feel threatened by what other people, including their own friends at school, are going to say about that. Toxic masculinity is a different, it's a different facet to that, because at the moment society is very heavily weighted towards the toxic masculinity. You know, this is what it is and this is why, and it's all over the media. And I think that is a really dangerous thing for our young men, to be told that they are a certain way, they do certain things, and can be certain ways to other people before they've even actually had the bloody opportunity to explore who they are. They're being told who they are, and it's not very nice who you are because of your gender. You're not very nice before they've worked out whether I am nice or I'm not. You know,
I get you.
That's hard. So, yeah, it's moved on a long way, particularly in the last 18 months.
Flexibility around that.
Yeah, in the last 18 months. I mean, I think 2 years ago, I was really concerned about the message that was coming out. You know, and I work in social sciences. I was really concerned about the message that was coming out on social media about men. And the impact, you know, even on me as in my 40s, the impact that would have on our young men and who they are feeling. You know, statistically, men are more likely to commit suicide, they're more likely to go into prison, you know, and all that sort of stuff. And you're thinking, well, okay, and now we're telling them that just by virtue of being male, you are toxic, or that was the message that was coming out
in the media. Because toxic masculinity, in my opinion, exists.
Yes, it does.
And it, you know, that we could really get into the meat of what that looks like. But yeah, you go, Matt, as well. Talk about your experience of being a man, being able to come out and talk about your emotions to other men, and yeah, maybe get onto what toxic masculinity looks like to you.
I mean, I'm not a very manly man, so it might be a very short bit from me here, but
what's that?
you make furniture, mate.
Yeah,
you're more manly than me.
Yeah. But I've always been.
And you actually, just to intersect, I think sometimes people's strength or disguised strength is often a weakness. You know, this big bravado, masculine man.
Yeah, I've never been bothered about getting to the gym and getting buff and things like that.
Really, you're quite openly, like, quite a sensitive soul, but really kind and friendly. And for me, that what's perceived as a weakness here is a massive strength.
So true.
I'm very agreeable. I'm a very agreeable person. I've always been like very happy. I always wanted to please, to my detriment largely. And you find that stuff out as you get older, don't you? You think this is being a nice person, and you think people take advantage, and then you regulate yourself, don't you, as you get older and things like that. But jumping off the back of what Jay said, actually, was like these young boys get told that they are, you know, maybe toxic masculinity, or they have tendencies for it, for something they've done. But what worries me a lot is the lack of, they're not allowed to make those mistakes and be maybe a bit silly growing up. Everyone's silly growing up. We've all made decisions that we think, oh my God, if I did that today, I'd probably, you know, think I was an absolute idiot. And you see young kids that do it, and you've been there, so you go, well, you're not a bad kid, you've just made a mistake. But maybe they get labelled by peers and friends and maybe parents that they know of, they're a bad kid now, because you know that, and because it's such a buzzword now. If you hear that in the same sentence as someone's name, you know, they're toxic, they're quite toxic with their sort of personality and their masculinity. It's sort of an outcast type thing now, isn't it?
Yeah,
Where it's almost, maybe they were like, I did make a mistake there, but there's no opportunity for that
growth. As well.
Yeah, I think that's probably my biggest worry when I see, young lads, even lads in their 20s, they're still learning. I think society expects a lot from everyone now. It's almost this like hustle culture. You need to be moving forward, you need to be accelerating, you need to be learning, you need to be growing all the time. And sometimes you just want to have a sit down, not you need to just reflect inward, and think, how's this year gone? What have I done well this year? What do I not like quite about myself? And I think that's what therapy actually does as well, because I've been through a therapy, from like stuff going through on my life that I got quite ill. So you think, well, I probably should see someone now, and it opens a door, because I was always very introverted. I'd never share anything with anyone. Well, I guess that's quite traditionally masculine, isn't it? You don't talk. I grew up in a household where we didn't talk about feelings. None of us did. It's just how a lot of people, I imagine, have grown up. And when you do open that door to be like, I can actually talk about things and people listen and then give you gentle advice, it's a massive eye opener. And I think everyone should go through some form of therapy. And I don't mean in terms of like paying for it. Maybe just a friend that will listen and talk to you about it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's a big part of this circle, isn't it? Because these boys are coming, and through the weeks they've opened up more and more and more, and during that time at the circle, we'll have like a topic for discussion, and it's up to them if they want to share or if they want to sit quiet. And even from the topics, just from listening to them, a lot of it has been like with a challenge, or with if you're suffering from mental health going on a negative front, actually knowing to reach out to people, know who you can talk to, know who you can just kind of like say, actually, I'm just having a bit of a rough time, and just to be able to speak about that. And I think that's like such an important skill to have. Not even a skill, it's part of being human.
Necessity.
Necessity. You've got to be able to know that you can actually have people who you just need to. I just need a chat. And if you don't have one of these like circles that you can go to, knowing who in your life you can just have a chat with, and that it's okay to have that openness, that time.
Finding the right people.
Yeah, and I think through the weeks, the lads are opening up more and more, and they're actually starting to realise what it is to share something that's going on in their life. And like the prompt always being what's going well and maybe what's not going so well. And just that alone, some of them will really open up with it. I had a great weekend. I had a great birthday party. I haven't laughed as much as it.
That was
fantastic.
And it's like
get onto some of those moments.
It's incredible. It's incredible. But there's the other way as well. I'm a bit stressed actually. School's piling a lot of homework on. We're seeing a lot of insight, and they're actually feeling in a place where they can share. And I think that's really important, that they're not just bottling it up.
Because that's where it can come out, and these are all natural emotions like aggression or whatever it is. But when you just bottle, that's when it lashes out.
Yeah,
predominantly,
absolutely.
you can see that in young men a lot of the time. I was one of them.
But that's quite sad, isn't it? That we have a society still, where young men in particular still don't feel able, unless they're sat around given permission, perhaps from the older generation. That we can share our feelings, and it's okay to do that. That they perhaps can't necessarily do that in other facets of their life for whatever reason. And the hope is that this has a knock-on effect, hence the term role models. It has a knock-on effect that they start to share and open up, and they feel comfortable in doing it, and that has a knock-on effect to the next one, and the next one. The butterfly effect.
I'm really glad you said the role models thing now, because the next sort of part of the discussion, what is a role model like to you guys? I'm really interested in that. I had a bit of a set, maybe quite rigid idea of role model, and I was asked it recently, and then somebody said something completely different, because I don't like the grime music nowadays really. I've listened to the lyrics and I thought, oh man. But then me and Frisco, if you've met him a few of the nights here, we had a bit of an interesting butting of heads maybe a little bit, But it really opened up a perspective for me on, okay, that is a role model in its essence. And so to you guys, I'll go to you first, Matt.
I was going to say, please don't come to
Mate,
me.
I'll go to you. It's been obvious choices in this nice round. But Matt, a role model for you, what is your definition of a role model?
I'd probably say anyone that can almost give you a different perspective on something that you've already thought about. So someone that even if you wouldn't even have to meet the person. You listen to a podcast or a show or something, or read something, and you think, oh, that's interesting. I think those are the moments you remember as you get older. You look back and you think, oh yeah, I do remember when I was thinking maybe of changing careers, and someone said that some advice to help you out of nowhere. Usually it's out of nowhere as well, which I always find. But yeah, something that helps you sort of calibrate where your next move might be, or help you with something that you're struggling with. I think anyone that does that is I would think would be classed as a role model. I would say.
Go on then, Jay. Role model.
Okay, so I agree with that, and I found that was a very powerful statement. Somebody can give you that different perspective, because as a kid, with the life I had, my role models were film stars. Big muscular, or somebody that can fly with a cape. They were my role models. They were truth, justice, and the usual way. That they was people that I looked up to, because in my personal life, perhaps the male role model, as it were, wasn't necessarily a good one. And then I've gone through my life and career, and I've taken bits of different people that have affected me and moulded me, including my own children, including the kids that come here. Sorry, kids, I'm calling you kids. The young people that come here, and the other men that I work with, and the women that I work with. And I take bits from each. And that, for me, is what the essence of a role model is. I think I wouldn't want to be constrained to having one role model. I think I've got to a point in my life, whether it be the oldest or whatever, where I know that I can pick a mix.
I love it. I completely agree with that. So what about you, Ollie?
When you asked that question, I had an interesting thought, actually, because like a role model could almost be something that's like you guys have said, these are conscious, or maybe more for you, Jay, superheroes. That's a conscious decision that you're going, role model, there's something there that I like. And what you were saying, Matt, seems a little bit more on the subconscious, where you weren't looking for the guidance as such, but it kind of found you, and then it played out as a role model. So there's like an almost interesting dynamic between like consciously going, oh, that's a great role model, or that's something that I aspire to, and then actually something coming out of kind of the left field and be like, whoa, oh right, yeah, and it's you're not like kind of looking for it, but it kind of finds you. But a role model for me, I think when you see someone deal with a situation, and you just think, wow, that was like just done maturely and like elegantly. Someone who can perform maybe something where maybe it's a tough conversation, and if I saw someone like navigate a really tricky conversation and do it well, do it with care, with compassion, that would be like, wow, yeah, no, that's kind of what I want to aspire to be like. I can learn from this person. So I think it's someone who's kind of almost walked the path before you've got there, and it's a path that you're like, this is important, that I also need to kind of take on board.
I think it's really interesting, because did you guys all see that Andrew Tate coming out?
I saw him get cancelled.
He got cancelled.
Saw him on Piers Morgan. I only saw snippets. I don't really watch it, but saw snippets of it.
The problem is with social media is you kind of, to stick out now, you have to be hyperbole. You have to be exaggerated and out there. But there was some stuff he was saying in probably more the podcasts where you've got to go searching and rooting through. Really good stuff for men to hear. It was just the snippets I was hearing was stuff that I don't agree with whatsoever. But I love that sense of, to a degree, he is a role model, and that's pick and mixing. And I love this quote. It's the best way to combat bad speech is better speech. Instead of just cancelling it and saying, no, that can't exist, no, we don't have that, you end up getting this black market down here of people, nah, screw the system, screw you guys, and it's divisive and they combat one another.
It becomes more dangerous.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then if you go, okay, let's talk about what he's saying, let's think about what he said, that's beautiful, that not so, this is why. Yeah. You get people finding these role models all over and taking the best parts of them away to amalgamate themselves from it. And I completely agree with what all of you say. It's a person of influence, isn't it, really? It's just a person that sticks the head out, tries something, and somebody finds that inspiring in whatever world that is. Because, yes, I don't like this grime necessarily. More, it's another term they use now, the drill style. The lyrics for me are insane, but to get on a stage and making thousands of pounds to be performing, he's took the risk. There's a lot of stuff there that people can find inspiration from and something out of. And I would have just poo-pooed that as that's not a role model. That's not a person of influence, but actually there's something in it. So I think everyone can be seen as a role model in some way or another if you're stepping outside the line of the conformity, in essence.
Especially musicians as well.
Yeah.
Because as I've gotten older, like I'll listen to most things, but it's always the artists that I listened to when I was in my teens and early 20s that are the ones I go back to, because they influence sort of, not necessarily how you think, but it's definitely like emotionally takes you back to a place where you think that was a good time. So maybe for the young people now, these drill artists, they're going to be the ones that they sort of look back on and say they said something powerful because I resonate with that age bracket that's music's coming out now. So maybe it's just a shift in sort of generation, really.
It was real. I was just equating it to the night as well that we're doing. Yeah. You know, won't mention any of the kids' names or anything, but let the facilitators, good ends of the spectrum, we've got Daniel and we've got Chris, for example. Two incredible people. I won't give anything of Chris's background away or whatever, but I know he's risen from the ashes and found himself in a phenomenal place. And yeah, that first ever session, he was unapologetically being him exact self. Daniel's got his version of and he's authentic and real in his way. But there's different kids in these sessions that are going to go over here and some are going to go over here, and they've just got different needs and different purposes for them people. And that's, since we've been doing these sessions, what I've enjoyed the most is seeing those people sort of build together and seeing the kids sort of over here one week, and then actually maybe they need a bit of gentleness over here and they move around there. So I'm so happy with what we've managed to bring together, because we do have all those different energies, and it's really exciting to see now.
I think going back to the issue about the role models, I think also knowing what I do for a living, I also see, so you talk about drill, grime, whatever it is, I think dependent on where that young person's coming from and the other factors that's influencing them at that particular given point. I said it before, didn't I? You know, you what happens sometimes in the first half an hour of your day can determine how your day goes, how your week goes, depending on the severity of whatever it is that's happened to you. So you take lyrics, for instance. If you're coming from a place where things aren't the greatest and you're looking for a crux to hone in on, and you're listening to violent aggression, you may well take that as the bit rather than the success of the person saying it, because that person who does that might have come from a different so it's really subjective, isn't it? It depends on what place you're coming from as to how you are inspired and what part of that inspires you to move forward. For me as a role model, the Rambos, the Arnolds, you know, so the Robocops of the world, I could have gone from a place where violence was something to solve something. But I didn't. I just looked at the strong characters leading other people. But perhaps if I'd have gone from I'd have a different side to my spectrum, as it were, I might have thought that violence was the only way and then become toxic. You see where
Or
I
maybe
come
there was
from?
some people in your life that you could think to where they brought that gentleness in with it that were other role models.
Yeah, there is, and I did have them, but some of our young people don't have them.
Yes.
And then you end up.
So if it's just violence in every direction.
Yeah, so they were honing on the violence aspect of something that perhaps is quite beautiful in terms of the lyrically and successfully and confidently getting out there and putting yourself out there, making a success of it using whatever lyrics. They hone in on the lyrics bit and the violence bit, and
I've seen that manifest itself.
Yeah,
it's not pretty.
No.
Yeah, and especially when they actually don't live that lifestyle, but they feel they've got to live up to it.
Yeah,
that's even worse to see bring out in a person. Okay, towards the nights of role models, I'd just like to talk about everyone's sort of favourite bits, some moments that you've got, anecdotal bits, where you've gone, oh man, I'm glad I'm a part of this. I'm really enjoying it. Because it's bloody good, isn't it? It's really, I remember the first session, and I'm not going to exaggerate this, but I went inside afterwards, and I'd seen a couple of lads around the fire that were literally me when I was that age. And the way that they opened up the first time, I was just holding it in a little bit in the circle, just to, I didn't want to let it all out all at once. So then we had the night, and I was in a bit of pilot mode because I couldn't believe what we were actually doing. But then I went inside, and we had the sofa bed out downstairs. I put Harry Potter on. I'm literally lying there with my partner, my daughter, and I'm just feeling this overwhelming sense of, wow, I've just been with amazing humans, helping these young people navigate themselves through a session. And I've just never felt that sense of pride before, and that wholesome aspect of everything just come together. And I had this buzz that wouldn't leave. And usually, do you know when you get a buzz, somebody says something cool and you get it for like goose pimples, 5 seconds? Yeah. I had it for about 10 minutes. Just there. I was looking at pictures and it was like zzz. So what have your favourite sort of experiences been from it? And I will go for you first, Jay, on this one.
Thanks,
talk us through a couple of moments.
The specific moments.
You can go moments or feelings afterwards.
I think the feeling that I had afterwards, especially after the first couple of sessions, was similar to yourself, because I've gone away from the whole being direct, cold face, working with the youth 20 years ago to sitting behind a desk most of the day, reading stuff and telling people what to do. Sounds great, it's not. So going back in and connecting with you and doing this again is, for me, I wasn't expecting that to happen. I'd done the Monday nights with you, and then we did obviously the Tuesday nights, which is the role model session, and I was dumbfounded by the energy that every single one of you and our young people put in parts of themselves to make that a success. And even those that only said, I don't have anything I want to say, said that they didn't have anything they want to say. And I'm watching it grow. That for me has been an absolute pleasure, because I've said this to you before. It's so different than when I did it. And I'm learning from you, and I'm learning from you too, and I'm learning from Chris and Dan, and I'm learning from Ben and all the facilitators. I'm also learning what our young people are now dealing with on a day-to-day basis, and the way they talk and what's infecting them now, which was different than when I worked with you 20 years ago and when I was a kid 30 years ago. You see what I mean? And then there's the anecdotal bits of the cooking and the sense of pride and achievement when we all sit around together and we sit and we are just enjoying a meal as a family, and everybody's sitting there having it. And the laugh and the joke and the way in which they're even messing about with the cooker trying to get it lit, doing the pallet pulling with you the other week, it became a game. It was like, so you can get as many out as you can. Of course we won, thank you. but watching you and yourself, going and showing them how you put a video on where you actually line that drill.
That was
properly.
that.
A
I
beautiful
literally
moment.
remember that moment
Yeah.
of Matt's hand coming in and
And just making
there you
it
go.
perfect.
That's- I
This
said
is
that to
actually,
Chrissy, I was like,
if you're going to do it right.
Yeah.
You didn't say it, but your hands said everything. And
Yeah.
that young person looked round and they then did it. Those moments.
Yeah. I love that you picked up on that.
I've missed, but I think those are the moments that these young people will remember as well. And I think that's fantastic. And having strong leadership.
Yeah.
The problem with leadership in a lot of careers and aspects is becomes a power trip mainly, and actually we are all in a privileged position of responsibility.
Yeah.
We're not powerful in that way. We're powerful by the virtue of that we've got the responsibility to teach and help and guide. And I think that is the most beautiful thing about this Role Models Night. I really do.
That's beautiful, mate.
Yeah, well said.
And I'll go now on that one.
Yeah. Mate, that's stunning. Yeah. Lads, hands down, mic drop. Yeah, Matt, what have you encountered?
I mean, I remember the first session I did, and when I came away from that, it felt like it was a really important thing that it's largely what you've said there, Jay, but it's a really important thing that to be a part of, really, for me personally, and through the last weeks that we've done it, I've learned a lot of how just to talk to them as well. What's how they are in themselves. Some are sometimes quiet, some are sometimes a bit more rowdy, and then you just get to see their little personalities. And we get around the fire and we start talking, and everyone really respects the fire, which I think is a really valuable skill they will take going forward. And
kind of unexpected to happen so quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is, I think that's one of the biggest things I've taken away from the last couple of weeks as well, is to see them really understand what is available to them in the men's circle, where they can start to talk about the things. I don't think there's really many lads that say now, I've not really got it. They'll say, all of them will say something small.
Yeah.
And it's not sort of like opening that tap of their sort of like, I can say something here as well. This is my little time to say something. And I've become very sort of proud of how they get to these little stages, and the cooking especially as well at the end, where they've said, I've cooked this and we're all eating together, and it's a lovely, really lovely moment at the end, just to tie it all together the night. And it's just really a really cool thing to be a part of.
It's
and really
nice
cool.
when you see a night or an idea develop on the spot, isn't it?
Yeah.
You sort of like bring in thoughts to the front and, okay, we'll try that, do that. But the food thing, that was organic. That didn't mean to happen, but it just made sense that, they've cooked. Okay, shall we all just sit over there and outside together? Yeah. And then we thought, right, this is a thing, implementing that. And it just constantly little stepping stones and building process, and it just keeps working that way, doesn't it?
The parents came last night and had some.
Yeah, the parents were involved.
Cool.
Yeah.
The parents were eating the food.
That was a good
a
moment.
special moment. Yeah.
And there's that too, is some of them have gone home having learnt how to cook at the night, and gone on to actually make that meal for the family at home. And
That's
like,
cool.
if that's not like a transferable skill, them showing that they're passionate, they're interested, and they're enjoying it. Like, I just thought, for me, that was such an amazing, just little something to hear about.
I'll go back round this way again, but any other little moments that you can refer to or think of where a kid did this, or something around the circle, or in your sessions actually? I don't get to go in the horse box enough when things are going off.
It's not enough room.
Yeah.
I can't fit in there.
But I'm better. Yeah, there's good vibes in there.
Yeah, we're always good vibes in the horse box. Always good vibes. I think the horse box has been a great project because they've been allowed to become responsible for tools, and we're showing them trust, and we're giving them guidance on how to use the tools, but we're trusting them to be responsible with them and follow our direction. And I think that goes a long way for the young lads, because I think trust is something, when you place that in someone, it kind of empowers them, but it also makes you go, oh, right, they've trusted me. I better respect them and respect what they're expecting from me, because otherwise, that trust will be gone. And actually, what they're going to be learning to do with the drills and the building side of it, it's like there's just a whole wealth of knowledge that they can glean from doing that. So yeah, it's been really fun just getting them drilling and stuff like that. And their eagerness is something that really comes across. A lot of the lads are like, oh yeah, we want to come on the horse box, and oh, can I do this drill? Can I do some more? Can I do some more? And they're all there, raring to go.
It's that sense of self-belief then as well. We've given them the trust, they've succeeded with it, and they're like, I can do this. I can do that. And you just keep seeing that. Instead of you putting the drill in their hands, you're seeing them going and picking up that drill from the start then. And you're like, that wouldn't have been there week one.
No. Well, you sit around the fire week one, and everything's quite embryonic, isn't it? And everybody's sat there in their shell.
Yes.
And then you'll get the ones on the day will go, oh, we're cooking. Can I do the cooking?
Yeah.
Can I go to the horse box? Can I do this?
Yeah.
Can I play football? And they will, like we talked earlier about your sort of education and the curiosity and allowing them to just move fluidly into what they want to do. Yeah. And now we're seeing that on the night.
That's 100% true. Yeah. Anything else for you, Matt? There's a little moment that filled your heart with a bit of joy.
Just how Ollie was talking then with the tools as well. If you get a crowbar out, everyone loves a crowbar. All of them just want to use a crowbar.
Drill music.
But there was one, I think it was two nights ago that we did it. It was we were ripping out the horse box to build it back up, and one of the younger lads, he was really struggling with this massive piece of plywood, and it's about the size of him, probably bigger than him, and he was trying to rip it up with this crowbar and smashing it, and then when because he'd been working at it for a good 10 minutes, and it's a hard effort into it, and when he did it, you see his face, he was like, yeah, I just got that out. And we were like, yeah, you did that, mate. Nice work. And it's just those little sort of things that you sort of have to...
A metaphor of the night in front of you.
I think he almost seemed like a bit shocked.
Yeah.
Like, God, I've done that now. Or also because it's like quite destructive. It's like... Normally, I'd get in trouble if I did something like this.
Yeah,
so it's like allowing them to do this a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good say.
Productive, isn't it?
That's going down.
That's
it.
We'll have that. Can have that. Yeah.
And Jay, anything that you?
Just the sense of responsibility that the young people have got now. I think they always have, but being allowed to try things out. Tony, who came the other week, I was saying to him, what are you going to do then when you come down? He said, I've got axes, I've got knives. When he first said it, I'm thinking, what? You're going to give him an axe? But then using the tools responsibly and being taught that these things are dangerous and to be respected. Then when he did get an axe out, they listened, and I sort of ducked in and put my head round and watched what was happening. And they was watching this older gentleman with an axe in his hand, listening to how to hold it, how to use it, how to cover it, and make sure it's fine. Now, that perhaps in the beginning of those sessions might not have been the case, but having gone through the sessions and learnt that something sharp is sharp to be respected, there is sort of productivity out of destruction every now and then. Something beautiful can come from something destructive. To then be placed with these weapons. I thought that was a lovely moment.
I did.
I really did. And even the facilitators that were with Tony as the facilitator, even they were sort of, it was like they weren't separate from the young people, and the young people weren't separate from the facilitators. They were on that level.
It's togetherness.
It was a fantastic moment. You put it out on a video, it's a fantastic moment.
This huge, what would be classed in their eyes as a weapon and have one purpose. He brings these really dainty, beautiful spoons out, and he's like, I made that out of this.
That's a cool thought.
The polarity there was stunning. I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
I think my moment was last week as well. There was around the fire, and as one of the leaders on this, I've really had to step into a place that I've never really been before. It's all alien to me, conducting a team. We are all a team together. I've just got to make sure I'm sailing the ship at times. So building rules and structure to it. when I'm quite an elusive guy anyway myself, and I just want everyone in, and I've realised that's not possible. But last week, I was semi-preoccupied in my head when somebody else turned up who wasn't on the list and all that.
Yeah.
And then sort of head down, not really engage into what I perceived. But then, as it got round to his going the circle, first he really opened up, and it was a really stunning moment. And I was like, oh, that was unexpected and lovely. And then went round again, got nice and silent, and unprompted, this lad just went, "Can I just say something?" And we're all looking up a bit perplexed, like, what's he going to say? Are we all right here? And he just went, "I've never listened like this, ever. I've learnt in 10 minutes of being here more than I've ever learnt at school." And honestly, my heart just went, wow. I'm glad we had that nuanced perspective, because if I saw somebody that was a new face and we're trying to build this, no, sorry, but we've got a team now, that moment wouldn't have existed. And I'm so happy it did, because it was, for me, really beautiful that somebody, for a first night when we built a bit of a squad to come in and add beauty to it, I thought, okay, there's more we can do in this.
And that was the right call to make, Mikey. You know,
it's been difficult.
Yeah, I know.
It's been
I can tell.
Yeah.
I managed many staff during the course of years now, and it was the right call to make. And I was on the fence with that, and was sort of like, we've got this core group. This is the nucleus of with what we want now, and quite rigid. And that was my, not ignorance, but that was my perception of what I did years ago. It was the right call. You know, that yes, you can't have a whole new group come in, but having the allowance and the fluidity to have somebody come in, he learned, even if he doesn't come again. This is what's possible. And that is that moment where you have the core group, yes, who come every week, who help facilitate the fire now, because they open up to allow somebody who's never been before, never done that before, to have that permission to then say what he said. If he never comes again, he'll remember that moment.
I think that's amazing, isn't it? Because I think the boys there, they are helping facilitate the circle now. They are partaking 100%, and that the whole circle dynamics, like, kind of evolving in that they're all growing and being more open, but they're also really helping a man, like, an incredible space. Yeah. And I sit there and I'm listening to the topics of discussion. And you've got like 10, 11, 12-year-old boys talking about these topics. And it's like, my God, I never thought of it like that. That's amazing, And I'm like genuinely learning from these circles.
I think that's why this feels very fresh and new and invigorating something for me. Because it's not just been a hammering school session. but again, for the adults around to be in a learning opportunity, and we're all taking on stuff and trying to implement new stuff, it feels like it's always taking form from one another, and everyone feels valued in that and getting value from it. So I think sometimes in a classroom setting, this is the authority, listening to what I've got to say, you don't have a place of it. But for everybody to think, Mikey, could we try this? Or Mikey, can we do this? And for the youngest ones to the oldest ones all putting in a bit of something and going, well, let's explore it. There might be another way. There is always another way. And that's how it feels. We're going to constantly be growing. And I would like to see that come into mainstream somehow, of just a building process. That's how the best things work, is constant facelifts, isn't it? I love that we have debriefs. We've got a group chat together, and we're always looking at, love that, not so keen on that, have you thought about this? It just it really helps the thing.
And I said the ship. The ship, I said last week, the young man who was in front of me, as I was thinking, we were talking about challenge. Do you remember we were talking about challenge, and in my head I was going to impart a bit of knowledge about taking bite-sized chunks, taking small steps to get to the end. And he said it. It was like he was reading my mind. He said it, and I'm thinking, wow. And he's like less than half of my age, and he's just imparted this knowledge that he's already got.
Yeah.
He's got it from somewhere, but he's got it. You know, what do I know? And that's when I said I'm learning as much from all of you and you young people as well as a 42-year-old man as you'll ever learn from me. And I think when we stop doing that and we stop learning, I think we need
That's
to
where it
give
becomes
it up.
stagnant.
Yeah.
Stagnant. Last part to this then, lads. In the circle, we go around and we all talk about our week's been, and then we have a bit of a group discussion about something. I'll go this way round, or I'll go that way. Actually, no, I've not been to you enough. What's your favourite discussion we've had, and something that you've learnt most from when we've introduced it into the group and we've all had a bit of an intellectual exchange about something? Because I think there's been some really interesting discussions in them groups. So, okay, I'm going to get... Are you ready? You look ready.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I think Mikey should start, to be fair. Sorry, Mikey.
I think last night was really interesting for me. What is mental health? God, it's very arbitrary language, isn't it? Mental health, and it's got a lot of layers to it. I think that there was just so many really important things said into that mixture, and that the lads were really engaged in it, so you can clearly tell that they're experiencing something. They're going on that internal dialogue that they just clicked in, and they're like, I want to know about this. So by wanting to learn about it, they're all adding in, is it this, is it that? And yeah, it was quite a vibrant conversation, I thought. My perspective, like something you said last night, was really profound, and your thought on, well, can I say a bit of it, or?
Yeah, go for it.
No, it's just like how a member of your family.
Yeah.
I won't say all of it, but it was a member of the family. Something.
Quite catastrophic.
Yeah, quite. Yeah. And when you sort of said it just got branched as, and it's because they had mental health. I thought, it's an easy way to just pigeonhole something like that, and that caught me quite deep. So, yeah, I think for me, getting to that point of we all have mental health. We all need to keep working on our stuff and being able to have spaces like this where we open up and we share and we're together. That was my discussion of last night. There was a lot of interesting thoughts penetrating the mind. Go on, Ollie. What view you had as a discussion we had?
I really did enjoy the one on challenge. Challenge felt like quite a broad topic in some ways. You could kind of go a lot of ways with it. But I just thought it was amazing how, like, each lad took it in turns and they'll just say their little bit, and by the end of it we just had this whole kind of like body of ideas and kind of knowledge on what a challenge is, and that challenges can be really good for you. If you don't challenge yourself, you're not going to push against, you're not going to like grow within your it would grow within yourself. But also that challenge, you don't have to feel overwhelmed by it. You can overcome challenge by doing the step by step. Just what is the next thing that I need to do? Break it down into bite-sized pieces so you can work through something. And also, if something's overwhelming you, if something's really challenging, don't feel like you need to sit with it. Like, speak to people, talk, open up. Find people who can help you. And I think just like talking about that with these young lads is my hope that will help them be like, oh yeah, I have got a challenge actually, but maybe I could break it down, or maybe actually I could just go speak to someone and they can just get me back on track with it a little bit and help me kind of work through it.
It's that nice idea of them repurposing words instead of, oh, everything's bad. It's like, is everything a challenge?
Yeah.
And what do we think to challenge? Yeah, I remember that conversation, and I remember one of the lads on that night literally said, instead of his homework, oh God, I can't, I've got this to do. It's like, I've got a challenge in front of me, and I thought, oh, that's lovely.
Positive mindset.
Reframing
Yeah,
it, isn't it?
yeah.
Rephrasing and reframing it.
Yeah.
It's, oh God, I've got homework. Actually, I've got a challenge now.
Yeah.
And that's another bit I like. At the end of the circle, quite often we'll sign out and say our name, and often we'll say something that's affirmative, like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm Ollie, I can do it, or I'm Ollie and I'm here for you.
Yeah.
And I just think it's such a nice affirmation to finish the circle
Good
with.
word, yeah.
Everyone's there, and they're just. It can be as simple as that, and that's just how we close off that space.
Go on, Matt. What conversation or group discussion?
I remember the one that we were doing about respect, and when Daniel opened up with what do we think respect is, and I think you, like, pretty all around the circle, all the boys said respect is earned, and I think it's quite, I don't want to, like, it's quite a young person's mentality to think that. It's almost like an old wives' tale, because Chris jumped in and he said, well, if we all have to earn respect, then there's none given it initially.
Yeah.
And you do have to give respect, and then if it's not reciprocated, then it's a different conversation. But if we all give respect initially,
Isn't that how you earn it?
and then it's a trust, and then it goes on from there, and that's how friendships are built in different relationships. But I just really enjoyed that part, because it was almost like them thinking, oh, there's something different that we can do day to day. That's a day to day thing, you know, respect to everyone. And it was just a really nice moment where it was almost a bit of wisdom being imparted to some young lads that might not have thought of that
I
differently.
give appreciation to us all as a group when we see something going a bit too far one way and unbalanced. There's always somebody that goes, I'm just going to throw this into the mix and see what you think to it, and try and bring that balance back.
Yeah, because that was a healthy. It's not a conflict, but just Chris kind of stepping in and saying, "Well, actually, there's another take to this."
Yeah.
It's kind of like the boys like, "Oh, yeah."
Yeah.
You know, you could easily let them breeze by and just have their thoughts, but adding that to the pool, and it's like, "Oh, wow," you know, there's a bit more to it than just what we thought.
Because there is no real absolutes, are there? There's importance to look at the different philosophies and ideas and thought processes around it. And even though there probably are some times where you can be absolute to a degree, but in these groups and discussions, it's important for that friction to be there, so we can all have a healthy attitude and balance within it. And I've just noticed that with everybody involved, even the kids, they make sure they're thinking what about and what other could be. I think that's really good. And so what about you, mate? What?
I like the challenge one.
The challenge.
Yeah, and I'm not going to repeat what you said. I liked the if it was easy, everybody would do it type mentality, you know, and that's what presents us with challenges every single day. Some people it's a challenge to get out of bed. Some people it's a challenge to do anything, you know, find motor skills wise or anything like that. And I think the way in which that conversation took form and took shape gave a fully rounded, and they all have, to be fair, you know, and the one about respect gave a fully rounded, as rounded as it can, perspective on what challenge is. And you could see the penny dropping with certain young people and certain adults as well, going actually, you know,
I've seen this as a big weight, and actually I need to face it.
I need to reframe it. And I you know, terminologies. Let's reframe that. Let's not look at it as the defeatist. Let's look at it as a you know, let's achievist. There's a difference between defeatist and achievist, isn't there? And the way to get from one to the other is to face the challenge, and they got it. And I like that. I really did. I wasn't, you know, I liked the one last night. Because, you know, everybody had a different perspective on what mental health meant. But the challenge one for me was the one that stuck out. And it was the one where some of the young people who I didn't think were going to speak said things that were so profound that you wouldn't expect from an 11-year-old, would you? You know, and it really struck me, and it stuck with me since. You know, I've talked about it in work, to be fair.
Really?
Yeah.
Mate, I must say, out of all the nights we do, most of my tales and anecdotes when I'm with colleagues or friends, it all comes from the Tuesday night sessions. It really does. We have brilliant times, but there's something particularly special about what we're creating. And yeah, I'd really like to see it blossom. I'd like to see it moving. I think we can take this places. I really do. Just need a big bus, don't we?
We sat on one. Brilliant.
Guys, thank you for today. I've really enjoyed it. I hope we'd be up for making this maybe a monthly thing that we could discuss and bring into the podcast, because I think it's important, and there's going to be lots more discoveries on the way, lots of these conversations coming forward. So I've really enjoyed it. Have you all enjoyed it?
Yeah. It's really interesting. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Have you've been on a podcast before? Have you, Matt?
Never.
Never been
No,
on a
first time,
podcast,
yeah.
mate. You're coming back just with me, mate. Back in the
You
bus.
keep trying.
What about you, Ollie? Have you been on one?
No.
Podcast virgins. Not
What was he
anymore.
said to me on mine? Well, the one I did with you, he said, I really wish I'd popped your cherry.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
You've got some.
Brilliant. That's why we're here.
Because I brought you to, was it Daniel James's that I'd put
I
you
did
on
that
for?
one, but I did Boothys.
Boothys first.
Boothys
Oh, it
first.
just beat me to the pip as well,
Yeah.
Bless yous. Right, well, I'll do my bit. Guys, you've been a part of the Old Farm Bus, Back of the Bus Sessions podcast. I'm going to leave you on this. I always do, and I always will. Just be nice to one another, you beautiful set of buggers. All you got to do is be nice.